Hello everybody, welcome to the channel, welcome back to the channel if you've been here before, but welcome to the channel if this is new. I'm going to talk about Doctor Who in this video, and I wanted to do a few videos, probably 4, on reasons why I like Doctor Who. Reasons why I love Doctor Who, possibly, I don't know, I can't seem to get rid of it, so sometimes I think, oh, I'm not going to watch it now, I've got Doctor Who fatigue or something, but I end up going back to it all the time. It's happened a number of times. So clearly it's got some pull for me, and it could be because I watched it when I was a kid, and it was quite transforming when I was in my early teens, and you know, I was utterly enthralled in those days in the classic era. So it could be that, you know, I haven't let go of that, and probably basically I haven't disliked it enough to write it off, because I know some people don't like the new stuff, so they won't watch it because of not liking the new stuff. But there were times when, like, the Peter Capaldi period got a little bit downbeat, and the Jodie Whittaker one, sometimes the episodes were written really badly, and I haven't got that far into the Ncuti Gatwa 15th Doctor stuff, but I've kind of been a bit torn, but I've liked most of it from what I've seen. But I've only seen 3 episodes of the new series, and I liked the Christmas special. But yeah, and there's some issues with it though. So the first thing I think of is I really didn't like the song that appeared at the end of the really awesome Beatles episode. It's a really good episode, and then they spoilt it by doing this twist at the end song, which was like, what are you talking about? For a start, there's not very often a twist at the end, so why are you writing a song about it being a twist at the end all the time? Because it's just not true, and there are some programs that is true of. So what are you talking about? And it just completely, it seemed to be I don't know, it seemed a bit desperate to me. Like, it was a really good episode. It didn't need anything to add to it. It was one of the best episodes I've seen for ages. And then they spoiled it with that song at the end. So yeah, things like that happen in the new series. They don't always, they sometimes just get too excited and they'll put something in which they shouldn't have done. Like, for example, them getting all excited about writing new Doctor Who lore and then deciding that William Hartnell wasn't the first one, which is ridiculous. So things like that. So, you know, I'm never expecting it to be perfect, but I can't get rid of that grip that Doctor Who's got on me. So I thought it'd be nice to talk about the actors first that have played Doctor. So there's going to be a few videos I'm going to do, general videos, but I'm going to talk about the actors today. So probably worth mentioning that I have got a playlist about Doctor Who, and I've done 4 videos about Doctor Who so far on my channel, and there's another one that's scheduled up to appear soon about Patrick Troughton, but I thought I'd do these general ones as well. So those are more specific to specific episodes. But let's talk about the actors. Because the one thing about Doctor Who as a character, or the Doctor as a character, is that it's quite a strange, eccentric, nuanced, complicated character. And to play it, you've got to play all sorts of different things. And somehow they've managed to get really good actors to play the Doctor every single time. I think they've been really interesting choices. So obviously the first one, which kind of set the bar on what he'd be like, was William Hartnell. And William Hartnell was quite a kind of narky Doctor Who, quite sarcastic and quite short-tempered, but then had these gentle moments as well, and had these sort of lovely moments of affection and emotion. But it was very much like an older grandfather figure. I mean, that he was literally called a grandfather in the episodes. But there was that kind of tone to it as well, that he had this sort of authority about him, which was a nice way to start the whole thing. But there was this eccentricity to it as well. And he was alien in a lot of ways. So I thought that was really good. So obviously that's the first Doctor, so it's the first time we get that character defined. So whatever else comes after that is going to be bouncing off that, right? which is kind of true for all the Doctors, but William Hartnell was the first one, so he wasn't bouncing off anything, and they did cast him apparently because he'd done various different things and that would encompass the Doctor Who kind of persona. So yeah, that was the first Doctor, and then he couldn't do the show anymore, so they broke TV tradition and thought, well, let's just keep the character and change the actor, and they brought out this regeneration idea, and they brought in Patrick Troughton, and Patrick Troughton is such a brilliant Doctor. I think he's one of the best. I think Patrick Troughton has got a light touch, but an amazing screen presence when he's being serious as well, and he looks like he's going to solve the problem. He looks like he's the person to look at in the room every time he's in the room. There's something about his screen presence that I just think is amazing. And he was very funny as well. So he had some lines that were put there as jokes or sarcasm and stuff like that. And he nailed it so well. And he was a little bit sort of impish as well in the way that he sort of ran around sometimes or jumped about. There's a great bit in one of the Cybermen ones where he's being shot at, and he's sort of jumping about and going woo woo woo, and great. So yeah, Patrick Troughton is easily one of the best Doctors, I think, and fantastic way of continuing that series and that character for TV. So the 70s come about, and you get the third Doctor, John Pertwee. And John Pertwee had done a lot of comedy stuff, like with Carry On films and stuff like that, before he'd done the Doctor. But he wanted a very serious persona at first. So there is a kind of return, if you like, to the first Doctor's seriousness and sort of sense of authority. And he sort of wanders around. He's quite a tall actor as well, and he wanders around kind of looking down at the other characters. But it works really well. And I think he's another one that you know, managed to do all sorts of things as a Doctor, and there was a real affection, I think, for the companions with that, which I think is true for the others, to be fair. But I don't know, I think that the way it could be the way he looks down, because he's so tall, that might have a psychological effect as well on watching him. But yeah, there's a calmness in his voice as well, which I don't think is true for the other Doctors up to this point. So I think that's interesting as well, that the way he delivered the lines was very calm, and he never really looked stressed, yeah, so I think John Pertwee was a fantastic Doctor as well. And then you get the big one, Tom Baker. Tom Baker is sometimes called people's favourite Doctor. It's either going to be him or David Tennant. I think I probably watched something very briefly with John Pertwee, but I don't think I was like watching it consistently like I was when Tom Baker was the Doctor. And I mean, he's just quite an eccentric guy, I think, and again, very tall, and had the most unforgettable costume, and again would dominate any scene that he was in. You know, if he was in the room, you're looking at Tom Baker, and his voice is phenomenal. There's so many reasons why everyone loves Tom Baker's portrayal of the Doctor. And he did a mix of sort of quite kind of techno-babble scientific dialogue with lots of running around sometimes, and he played it for a long time as well, so he played it longer than the other three. And yeah, I mean, he was the reason why I started becoming a huge fan of Doctor Who and the Doctor character. So Tom Baker is quite justifiably legendary in that role, I think. So then after that, you got Pete Davidson. And Pete Davidson, the thing with him is that because of my particular age, I was already watching the Doctor Who consistently, but I think I was getting older enough to appreciate sort of the science fiction elements and the character development and all those kind of things in the show. I was just the right age, I think, for Peter Davison to feel like he's my Doctor. I feel like Peter Davison's my Doctor, as they say, you know, depending on what age you are. So even though I'd already become a fan through Tom Baker, Peter Davison felt like he was my Doctor. So I absolutely loved the Peter Davison years, and I've got fond memories of watching it as a kid. And again, he had this. He's I'd say he's more of a serious Doctor Who, Doctor. And there are a couple of others at that kind of seriousness, but so he doesn't quite have the same level of eccentricity that Tom Baker had and Patrick Troughton had. So I think it's a return to that authoritative thing where you can see him thinking thinking about solving a problem in a kind of serious way, and it kind of an action Doctor as well. So there's a lot of action sequences, and that was part of his persona, I think, as well. But yeah, Peter Davison was awesome. And then you get Colin Baker. So I was still watching Colin Baker episodes consistently when I was a kid. He was kind of a bit of a mad Doctor. So he had sort of PTSD, and he was very angry a lot. And he would literally have a go at Peri and freak her out because she was already freaked out that there was a regeneration happening, and all that kind of stuff was kind of interesting. But I guess if I was to make any kind of statement about who was the weakest one, I'd probably say it was Colin Baker. But I was still a big fan at the time. And then Sylvester McCoy follows him as the seventh Doctor. And obviously he's now known for the last one of the classic era. And, kind of the last TV one for the classic era. So there is one more for a TV movie. But yeah, he was the last one to have a full run. And I think it's a bit of a shame for him, because I think it was again just the right kind of actor, a little bit eccentric, a little bit more like Patrick Troughton again. So you have kind of these two sides to the Doctor. Either he's kind of a William Hartnell serious kind of Doctor, or Patrick Troughton kind of eccentric, funny kind of Doctor. So it seems like those two first and second Doctors created a template to play with, and Sylvester McCoy was a bit more like Patrick Troughton. But yeah, really, really good actor. Quite underrated, I think. And he did a great job. And then you had Paul McCann in the TV movie, which they tried to make this movie to reboot Doctor Who after a little bit of a gap. And really serious Doctor. I mean, the whole film is much more serious and less eccentric. More of a kind of an action film. It's got lots of Doctor Who tropes in it. It's got the Master in it, and there's lots of things in it that you can relate to the rest of Doctor Who. So it's not completely away from Doctor Who lore, but it's a TV movie with a very serious tone to it, and I think I like the portrayal of the Doctor there, but I prefer him to be a little bit more eccentric and mad and funny. So yeah, again, one of the weaker ones for me, but he only had one TV movie to sort of show off what he could do, and it could be if he was in a series, there might have been a more nuanced, complicated Doctor on screen maybe. So then obviously you get this hard reboot and the new era starting with Christopher Eccleston, and Christopher Eccleston was a fantastic Doctor. Absolutely brilliant. I would argue that he was better than David Tennant, but only because he was so good. There's nothing wrong with David Tennant's Doctor at all. But there was something about Christopher Eccleston's portrayal of the Doctor that was so well-rounded. It was a bit of everything. He's a fantastic actor anyway, and I was already a fan. When I found out he was going to play the Doctor, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. So he's a really good actor anyway. But there was this joyfulness to his portrayal when he was in a good mood and when he was happy and full of life and energy in that. And then there was this sort of painful Doctor as well when he was struggling. And I love that dichotomy between the two things. He did that really well. And I think that was how David Tennant carried it on and how he portrayed it. And it's how Ncuti Gatwa has done it since as well. So it's interesting that Christopher Eccleston kind of created another template as well. So like a third way of doing it. So, yeah, Christopher Eccleston, phenomenal actor, and it's really good that we've got him as a Doctor. Even though it was only for one season, he is a lot of the reason, I think, why everyone gave it such a big reception when it came back. And then you got David Tennant, and David Tennant is a lot of people's favourite Doctor. He is an amazing actor. I'm not really sure that he needed to come back for the second time, but I did like the stories though, and I did enjoy it. And it was kind of nice to see him and Donna again. But ultimately, the best thing about David Tennant's period is that initial period with Rose Tyler and all that kind of stuff, and Martha as well. There's lots of interesting things that David Tennant did in those years, and he was really good at doing both those things that Christopher Eccleston set up. That real serious kind of painful, experienced Doctor, and the joyful kind of energetic Doctor as well. So yeah, the new era was being really firmly laid down by a really good David Tennant. And then Matt Smith follows him, and it's really interesting because I remember saying to all sorts of people that, in conversations, that I really wanted it to be an old Doctor. And then when they cast Matt Smith again, I was like, oh, why do they keep casting young people? And apparently they were after an old actor anyway. But then they did cast Matt Smith, and he did a really good job. So I didn't know him before this, and he did a really good portrayal of possibly a more Patrick Troughton-esque funny Doctor. But the way he delivered the lines when it was more scientific, or when he was telling everyone what the problem was, he had this energy to him, which I thought was really good. And also there was an alienness about the way he delivered lines as well, and the way he looked at people, and his mannerisms I thought was really good. So I think there was lots of ways that he was a really strong Doctor. So Matt Smith I thought was really successful. And this Matt Smith, his tenure was also the time for Amy Pond, and I think she's easily one of the best assistants, lots of assistants. That was really good. The relationship that they had was fantastic. And then there's John Hurt as the War Doctor, who makes a special appearance in the 50th anniversary show, The Day of the Doctor. And it's perfectly cast. I love John Hurt. I've loved everything he's done. I'm a massive fan. He's one of my favourite actors. So it was so exciting to see him play the Doctor. And the writing is so good in Day of the Doctor. It's one of my favourite things that's ever happened in Doctor Who by a mile. And John Hurt is absolutely amazing in it. So, yeah, I think he's perfectly cast. He's got the way that John Hurt carries a scene, the way he dominates a scene, and the way there's so much experience and pathos and apparent wisdom in just the way he's doing his scenes. It's just so cool. So, yeah, it was perfect casting for the Day of the Doctor, I think. He is followed by Peter Capaldi. And Peter Capaldi was such a good choice, really good choice. I knew him before he was cast, so when he was announced, I was really excited, and he did a fantastic job. Again, he kind of a mix of lots of things. He was quite narky, quite angry sometimes, very funny sometimes, very energetic. He was kind of a combination of 4 or 5 different Doctors, I thought, which I thought was a really interesting way of doing it. And he was let down by the writing sometimes, because which becomes a little bit of a theme now, from now on. I don't think the writing has stayed consistently brilliant from this period onwards. But a really good actor to get given the role, though. And I think it's a shame that he only did a couple of seasons. I'm not sure how many seasons he did, but it seemed like he wasn't around for very long. So then, controversially, he was followed by Jodie Whittaker. And I have absolutely no qualms about him being replaced by a woman, and she was a really good choice, I think, for actress. She played it really well. She was, again, I'd say probably a bit like Peter Davison as far as her portrayal of the Doctor. I'd say that's a good comparison, but there were some times that she was funny as well, which Pete Davison wasn't very often. But yeah, it seemed to be much more of a serious portrayal of the Doctor. But again, she was let down by the writing. Some of her episodes were really badly written, and some of them were good though. But yeah, some of them weren't very good. And she had an interesting selection of companions. I thought was really good. But yeah, she was a really good actress to play the role. But I just think the writings let her down a little bit. And then, so she's followed by David Tennant again, which, as I said, don't think that was necessarily, but it was still fun to see him back because he's so good. And I remember commenting on the fact that it was good to see him back, but I wasn't a fan of the bi-generation thing. I thought, let's have him back for a minute and then generate again. That's cool. I understand why they wrote it like that, and it's kind of good writing. The idea that they wanted to put some extra character development into the Doctor, but I don't really know if it's that kind of show. I don't know if we need this deep character development in a show like the Doctor Who. So yeah, I'm a bit torn on that. But then he was replaced by Ncuti Gatwa, and I think he's been a good Doctor. I haven't seen masses of his show. I've seen the Christmas special and a few of the new series, but I think he's a good actor to play him. It seems to be that he's doing a very serious portrayal again. So he's like enthusiastic and energetic, but then quite often is having these serious speeches or the serious scenes to do. So that can be a little bit, I don't know, a bit of a distraction. I don't know if Doctor Who needs to be as heavy as that, as much as it is. But again, the new writers seem to want to do that. But yeah, I'm going to carry on watching the rest of the series. So I haven't been pulled into it like I have with previous times. But again, it's because the writing lets itself down sometimes, like I said earlier on in the video. But yeah, Ncuti Gatwa is a good actor for it. And I think they seem to have nailed it as far as every time they've had to cast an actor, it's been really interesting and they've done a good job. It's always the writing that's let it down. If it's never been the actor, I don't think they've chosen the right actors. It's just sometimes the writing's been a bit naff. So that would be really mostly the Peter Capaldi, Jodie Whittaker years, and possibly the Ncuti Gatwa ones, but we'll see how that goes on. But yeah, you didn't notice bad writing during the David Tennant and Matt Smith ones because it wasn't often enough, and sometimes it would just become like average rather than bad. But there's been some bad ones in recent years. So yeah, I'd say that's the thing, that the writing lets itself down sometimes. But I just wanted to say something I found out, and that was that there was a bunch of actors that were asked to play Doctor Who in the past, and they're really interesting choices. So my favourite person that never got the chance to do it, but he apparently declined the offer, and that's Ron Moody. Ron Moody. So you'll probably know him as Fagin from Oliver, but he's done tons and tons of things, and he is a really good actor, or was a really good actor, and he would have been a really interesting choice of playing the Doctor. So Ron Moody was someone that they asked. I can't imagine how cool that would have been. That would have been really, really cool. So that was a great thing to hear about. Apparently Bernard Cribbins, and Bernard Cribbins obviously became a feature in the Doctor later, but he was also in the Peter Cushing Doctor Who films, which aren't officially canon, but they were made by a different company, so they kind of just took the characters like the Daleks and Doctor Who and just put him in this film with Peter Cushing playing him. But Bernard Cribbins played a taxi man in those films, or at least one of the films. So he had a history with Doctor Who anyway. But how cool would that have been if Bernard Cribbins had played Doctor Who? That would have been awesome. And then apparently Bill Nighy was also asked, and he declined. So he would have been a really good Doctor. I think at the time when there was a rumour, lots of people were getting all excited because the rumour had come out that he had been asked. And I think Bill Nighy would have been exactly the right kind of actor. And then Jeff Goldblum apparently was asked, and or at least was considered. I don't know if he was asked, but he was considered. Jeff Goldblum. I mean, Jeff Goldblum is one of my favourite actors, but he's also very eccentric, and he would have been a really good. The way his mannerisms work, just naturally in every part he plays, really lends itself to Doctor Who. So, yeah, Jeff Goldblum might have been the Doctor. So that's crazy. So yeah, I just think it's really interesting to do a general chat about the people that have played Doctor Who in Doctor Who. Played the Doctor. If anyone corrects me and says it's the Doctor, not Doctor Who, that'd be hilarious. But Yeah, I think it's interesting the people that played him and or her, and the character of the Doctor is a really fascinating, complicated, and always surprising and fresh character, and it's been going for 60 years. So it's quite amazing that it still seems that it can be fresh, it can feel fresh after 60 years. How cool is that? Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay curious.
Paint me a picture